Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Amy, for the nice introduction. And this is one of my favorite subjects. You guys have heard this before probably a million times, but you're going to hear it again because I'm proud of my background. I've been fighting essentially for rights of students that are visually impaired and blind for about 25 years now. And part of that right also applies to our teachers who may have a disability when they're trying to access our Tools for Teachers site or any of our programs. So this is why I'm here really to talk to you guys about accessibility and accessible documents, is just to bring you on the movement that I've been on for many years. And that is to try to make things as accessible as possible for anybody who may be accessing what we're creating. And why? It's my number one bullet point right there, is because it's the right thing to do. You know, we always are taught right or wrong when we're kids, and this is one of those things that we need to think about others, especially in this current culture that we're living in today. If we don't think about each other, then we're kind of all lost, right? We have a culture of accessibility at Smarter Balance that we also pride ourselves on, and it's from our items that we create in our assessment systems, in our formative assessment processes, whatever the word is. I'm not an English major, clearly. And also with our resources that you all are creating, we want to make sure that as many people as possible can access the work that we're doing. If those are not enough reasons for you to jump on this, I'm going to steal Amy's analogy, the accessibility train, because I like it. If you don't want to come aboard with us, you can also dive into the legalities behind it. It's not only the right thing to do, but it's also a legal thing to do. So with the Section 508 Rehabilitation Act of 1973, that 1973, like think about, okay, so I'm just going to say I was alive then. Sorry, Amy just spit her coffee across the room. That was a long time ago, and the electronics looked much, much different than they do today. So you would think we'd have our act together, I should say, with things electronic, because that Rehabilitation Act ensured the rights of people to access to electronic information. It started out really about anything that any company or school or government agency that received federal funding were required by law, this Section 508 Act, to provide accessible materials. We're still working on that, not just us at Smarter, but across the country. I loved this landmark case that just happened this year, or this past year, with Domino's Pizza, and I've just completely blanked the gentleman's name, who sued Domino's Pizza. Essentially, he wanted to be able to order online, like everyone else, those awesome chicken wings that I'm so happy they don't deliver where I live now. He wanted to be able to order those online. He happened to be blind and was unable to access their website. And Domino's said, you know, we have a phone, you can call in on the phone. And he said, I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's equal access. So he sued them, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court upheld the decision that, yes, it needs to be fully accessible. And it was the first time they'd upheld the decision to require accessibility with the Section 508 Rehabilitation Act for private companies, as well as just people or organizations that receive federal funding. So changes are going to come. I think with all these websites that we have now, people are being more cognizant of making sure that things are accessible. It's still, the internet has still a long ways to go to ensure accessibility. And as we know, technology changes so quickly from day to day, month to month, year to year, that it's an ongoing need to continue, not just once, but continually checking resources or checking websites to make sure they're accessible. How they judge whether something is accessible is really by the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. You might have heard of WCAG 2.1. The World Wide Web Consortium has started these sort of rules of thumb, or rules of thumb, not necessarily law necessarily, but ideas for people to follow when they're designing websites or online material, and really thinking about POUR, P-O-U-R. Are they perceivable? So someone who might use a keyboard or are visually impaired, can they really see and access that information? Is it operable? So can you use keyboard or other assistive technology to navigate through a website? is it understandable? So if there are folks with cognitive disabilities that need to have a little simpler language, is it understandable for them as well? And is it robust? That's when we talk about just making sure that things are continually accessible. Is it going to stand up to the next 5 updates of Safari or Chrome? So those are the things that we think about when we talk about accessible documents. Next slide, please. So the mission that we were enlisting you all in as well is to ensure that all of your documents, your videos, your audio presentations, we want to ensure that they're accessible. And remember, we're creating these resources for other teachers. So when you're creating these, keep that in mind. We've often found when you talk about universal design for learning, when you design from the very beginning with accessibility in mind, it often helps more than one population of students or adults. You know, if you think about a ramp that was designed, UDL was initially designed for buildings. If you think about a ramp, it helps other people, right? Not just people who are in wheelchairs. So we want to create our resources thinking about accessibility. Think about those kids in your classrooms that you have experience with, or other adults or teachers that you may know with disabilities, and format. Think about the formatting and the accessibility with those folks in mind. Use the template. That's not as much of an issue, but you guys have the template for your basic resources. Make sure you follow that as formatted. And as I said, I jumped ahead on my slide. Remember that we want to think about universal design across the board, because what helps one student or one teacher is bound to help many others. All right, next slide, please. So I did these quick slides, and thinking about a teacher who is blind. I've talked with teachers in Schools for the Blind and outside of Schools for the Blind who have said, God, I'd really love to access Tools for Teachers, or used to be called Digital Library. They said, but you know, I've looked at some resources and they weren't accessible. So that makes me want to like cry a little bit, right? Because we really want to make things accessible, which is why the new Tools for Teachers, which is so beautiful. Also, it's beautiful and accessible. Little plug there. Imagine that you're a teacher and you've gone into a resource and you get there and none of it is accessible. So this is essentially what you see. You've heard this is the best resource ever. A friend of yours shared it with you. God, you got to use this resource. It's amazing. Your kids will learn everything they ever needed to know. And you get there and this is essentially all you can access. So a blank black screen, nothing, no audio, no alt text, no nothing. This is extreme. I'm being extreme just for the make a point. Next slide, please. And I need to do a disclaimer that I stole this resource off of the digital library and I made it inaccessible, by the way. So this is not what it looked like. I hear that the person that created this last time was on the call, last time I did this training, and he felt really horrible that he didn't make it accessible. No, you did. I made it horribly inaccessible. So I just happened to grab it off the site. So I apologize for giving you stress and anxiety and not prefacing that. So if we don't use formatting, we talked a lot about using formatting, using your headers so that a person who is blind can navigate. Okay, lost my slides. So a person can navigate you know, from between headers. If you have not designated headers 1, 2, and 3, or 4, or given any kind of structure to your document, this is essentially what the screen reader will read. So it just reads all of that with no breaks. So imagine if you really just wanted to go down to jump down to part B, and you have to listen to all of that to try to, or use your down arrow to try to find it all. It's really cumbersome and it takes forever. You might get discouraged. Maybe you have a 10-minute break in between your classes. You really would like to go use the bathroom also. So you want to just find this resource quickly, but this might take a student or a teacher who's blind, you know, 45 minutes to make sense of it. Next slide, please. So this is the other thing, is we're talking about not only teachers who are totally blind, because often someone who is legally blind actually sees quite a bit. They just need to be closer or have adaptations in order to see, whether it be color differences or contrast. It's very, very important. So this teacher has asked their friend who happens to be low vision, hey, can you help me read through this resource because it doesn't seem to be accessible. And the teacher that they've asked has color contrast issues. And so they were unable to read the name of the resource. Luckily, the person who is totally blind was able to read that with their screen reader. And the person also who is low vision is unable to read that exit ticket section because the contrast is so poor, they're unable to read it. 1 in 8 boys and men are colorblind now, have some form of color blindness. So we really want to think about how we use color, not using color to convey meaning, and also the contrast of colors that we're using together. So I've gotten this far as my teacher who is totally blind using a screen reader. And I've clearly this is a math and I want to look to see if this exit ticket would be great for my students to use. And as I'm coming down, all I read is number 1, solve image 16 in terms of image 8 and image 33, image 23, image 5. So this is what happens if you've taken screenshots of your equations and put them in without alt text. So I still don't know as a teacher, do I want to use this best resource ever? Because I have no idea what those equations even are. Next slide, please. So I've gotten to the worksheet. This one's a little bit more accessible and I'm reading down. They've used regular text for the $ and the numbers. So that's worked out quite well. Or possibly they use MathML, which also is excellent to use. And then we've gotten down to the table, a ratio table, and they've actually, instead of putting a real table in, they've used an image of a table. So when I get down to I need to use that ratio table to predict how many birds could be fed with a 5-pound bag of bird seed. All I hear is image 32. So again, I don't have enough information to really inform whether I'd like to use this resource or not. At this point, I'm getting frustrated because again, I only had 10 minutes, right? Next slide. So links are another thing that we need to be really mindful that we're naming our links so that they make sense. As a person using a screen reader, I can run a list of links and I can just arrow down through the list of links. And so I'm going through my list link and all I hear is link, link, link. So you see I've written link. I'm making an extreme example, but it might be say, you know, they are completing maybe you've used a screenshot of a link. And so it's just, again, make sure that you're using really clear descriptions of your link. It doesn't have to be a long description, but name it so that it makes sense to someone. Next slide, please. When we talk about alt text, you might say, like, what in the world is alt text? So alternative text is essentially text that we add kind of behind the scenes that allows a screen reader or, you know, for example, a text-to-speech like Google Reading Aloud, an article that you may have or a resource. And it just gives a little bit more meaning. What do we really need in alt text? We don't need a 150-word essay. You ELA people, I'm pointing at you because you guys love your words. It doesn't need to be super long descriptive. I think that I had the name of the boat. I used this in San Diego. It was somebody help me out, HSS something. I used the boat out at sea. So it could be just a really descriptive meaning, or not overly descriptive meaning, I should say. The midway, thank you, Darla. If the image really conveys no meaning, so you've just added it because we need images. Us sighted people, we love our images. It keeps us entertained. Kids, adults, all of us, we need our images. So don't shy away from images because people who have learning disabilities, that helps them get more meaning as well as keeps them, all of us, engaged. So if it's just for decoration, just to keep us entertained, just click on your alt text, right click on most programs, add your alt text and just write decorative image. That way the person who's blind is reading along, oh, it's an image, but I don't really care what it is. It's decorative, I don't need it. All other images, you want to make sure that you're adding any kind of alt text to all images, and then any mathematical functions that are not within MathML. So if it's a graph, you want to make sure that you're adding things like the X and Y coordinates, any points. I want to make a point here too that I wasn't really clear about over the past, and I've heard the question a few times now, is we're creating these resources for teachers. And so if you create a worksheet and you're doing alt text, please put the information, as much information as you can about that image in the alt text, because the alt text is for the teacher looking at the resource. And that teacher can remove that alt text if you're worried or concerned about, you know, for a student who may be blind or for his sighted students, they can remove that alt text, or most sighted students are not going to know there's an alt text there, so they won't be able to cheat. But really, we're creating these for teachers, so make sure that you include alt text on all of your mathematical functions if they're not in MathML. So just think about how the image is being used. If you could flip back, sorry, I'm being wordy today. I'm just blaming the ELA people for that. So think about how the image is being used, be succinct, don't be redundant, check the text, maybe all the information you've already included in your text, which is actually ideal. And then don't use the words like image of or graphic of, it's just redundant. Okay, jump ahead. Use of color, we want to really ensure that text has good contrast. So all of us at some point in our life will have a disability. As we age, there's more and more aging issues related, and those of us over 50 can really understand the color contrast thing and the good lighting. Anybody who's over 50 is probably laughing right now going, oh my God, it's so true. So we want to make sure there's sufficient contrast between the text and the background. And we want to make sure that we're providing multiple ways to convey meaning, not just with color. So make sure that we're either using color or underline or symbols or outlining. I think Chelsea, I think in the meeting, and I'm forgetting where all my meetings were, when we used to travel, remember those days? There was a meeting somewhere, I think Minneapolis. She had an excellent example of using multiple forms to convey meaning on a worksheet. Using boxes around, dotted lines, and color. So don't be afraid to shy away from color. Just make sure that's not the only way that you're conveying meaning. Next slide. Yeah, if you could share your sound with us. This is a short video that's done by the World Wide Web Consortium, the W3C, and it's just great to kind of give us
Web accessibility perspectives. Colors with good contrast. There's something about great design that allows it to go practically unnoticed. But it doesn't take much to make things confusing and frustrating. Choosing colors with poor contrast makes navigating, reading, and interacting a real pain. Good design means sufficient contrast between foreground and background colors. That's not just text and images, but links, icons, and buttons. If it's important enough to be seen, then it needs to be clear. And this is essential for people with low contrast sensitivity, which becomes more common as we age. With good colors, websites and applications can be easier to use in more situations, like in different lighting conditions. Web accessibility, essential for some, useful for all. Visit w3.org/WAI/perspectives for more information on colors with good contrast.
And they have some other really great videos. So if you guys in your spare time are wanting to look more into just accessibility in general, they have some absolutely amazing videos of actual real people using their assistive technology. And it really brings it to home when you see the real people behind the need. Next slide, please. So we guys are working in the Google Suite. Google Docs and Google Slides all have really similar features. Remember that we're asking you to do your best with this. If you don't feel comfortable, ask a question. The accessibility coaches have lots of knowledge. Vitaly's here as well. Myself, Amy, and Chelsea are working on their expertise as well. So ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to admit that you may not know exactly. This is a lot of information. We will have a vendor check an audit, but we would like you guys to do the best you can to make it as accessible as possible right away. And it's great because you can transfer this over to your classrooms as well when you're providing resources for students, because again, it's going to help all students. So in Google Docs and Google Slides, you can use your headings and lists. I think that Tanya also has made access to these slides. You guys can refer to these, so don't feel like you have to frantically make notes and get all the information, because you can go back and reference these. So in Google Docs, I've just showed the menu for, you can add your borders, your paragraph styling. And that's where you get your headers 1, 2, and 3. Again, this is gonna just help a person who's blind at navigate, as well as people who need those like bolded, a little larger print to help keep their attention and segment what they're reading. Next slide, please. So again, this is just Google Slides. It's just on the apply layout section, and there's some built-in layouts that already preset the headers. And so that's great when you're doing Google Slides, just to help it make it more accessible. And also when you're using the built-in bullets and numbering in Google Slides, that also is more accessible for folks. Next slide. If you want to add alt text to your images in the Google Suite, you just right click, click on alt text, and then enter your alt text in. Again, use decorative image if it's just a decorative image. Don't use the title field. They have a glitch in their software that does absolutely nothing. Instead, put your alt text down in that description field. So the bigger box, go for the bigger box. Bigger's better. Next slide, please. Tables, we really want to make sure that you use simple tables using the table tool. Try to avoid as much as possible merge cells. Tables within tables are completely inaccessible and they'll have to be redone. Make sure you're not using images of tables, but actually use the table functionality that's built into Google. You can identify, if you're using Word, you can identify your headers. Unfortunately, that's another thing Google is missing. But if you had created it maybe in Word, you can actually identify your real table headers. And you can also use formatting features such as centering and bold for your headers. If a table continue on the second page, and if you're using Word to cut and paste, you can just continue table headers in the table settings, and that will just help. So if you jump to another page, it can be very confusing if the table headers are not there. Next slide, please. I talked about this already a little bit in my example. Make sure that your hyperlinks are meaningful. So, you know, select a word or a few words that really sort of define the meaning of what the link really is, and then add a hyperlink through the hyperlink tool. It's just that little kind of paperclip looking symbol, and it will say, if you're using a keyboard navigation, it will say hyperlink, and then just cut and paste your hyperlink right in there, and that makes it much more accessible. Next slide. Grackle Docs is a great add-on for Google, so feel free to download it. Don't let, you know, read a little further. You don't have to pay for it. Don't feel like you have to pay for it. The full version does, the partial version in the free download does exactly what you need it to do. The full version to pay, you get actually some tech support help, which you don't need because we're here to do that. So essentially, just go to get add-ons, search accessibility, and Grackle Docs will pop up. Once it's installed, just go ahead and launch it when you're wanting to check your, yeah, great, yeah, free 30-day trial. It actually continues after 30 days. They just don't tell you that. Feel free to use it because I still have mine. I had mine for a year. And just launch it, which it's really go ahead and go on to the next page. It's really easy to use. So you're going to run a check. So you finish your document and you want to run a check, or you're partway through your document and you want to run a check. You just shoot it and ask it to check. So it checks all those things we talked about. Headings, are the headings good? Are the tables good? Are they real tables? Do you have your images all alt texted? So all of that program does all that for you, just to double check. Next slide. If you're using Microsoft Word and cutting and pasting into Google Docs for your resources, you know, those are those attachments that you want to attach. You can use the accessibility checker in Word. So it's just file, info, check for issues, and check accessibility. After you move it, this is a really important step. After you cut and paste it into Google Docs, double check that it's there. So run that Grackle Docs in Google to make sure that all the hard work that you've done to put the alt text and headers actually transferred over when you cut and pasted. Next slide. Word is very similar. To add your alt text, you just right click on an image, check your format picture, select alt text, and Word has the same issue. The title does absolutely zero. Put your alt text in that description box. It's a lot of information, imagine, and just don't panic because Tanya will share these slides, or may have already. So tables, use simple tables using the table tool. So this is in Word, same kind of thing. You can identify the headers, just right click in the row where the headers are going to be located, go into your table properties, select row, and check the box for headers, the checkbox. And then you can also do that repeat as header row at the top of each page, which just continues, like I said, if your table breaks onto a second page. Next slide. So if you guys are doing any video or audio, I'm not sure anybody is, but essentially we need to make sure that any video or audio has either closed captioning involved. So there are ways that you can create it, either using YouTube Studio, Zoom, you can record it, which is really cool, and then save your site. And Zoom does its own closed captioning, which is nice. Or you can create your own closed captioning file. If you have YouTube or Zoom, create your closed captioning file. So it's essentially for people who are deaf, hard of hearing, they're unable to listen or hear all of what's being spoken. Just remember that that those closed captioning files automatically done are not perfect. So it can end up with some very embarrassing closed captioning sometimes because it's just the life that we have can be funny. You know, with electronics. So make sure you double check your transcripts to make sure they're accurate. Make sure that when you're doing your slides or you're doing your audio or video work at all, make sure that you think about how you created it in the first place. Think about accessibility in mind. Are you adding visual information that you're not voicing at the same time? If so, then we need to also provide a text transcript for it. So if you create it already with being very descriptive, you know, in your video itself, you can kind of skip that step of the text and transcript because it'll make sense to people who are blind as well. Next slide. Again, I'm just going to skip over this because it just gives you more detail on how to actually add it. And if you need more help with that, the accessibility coaches or Vitaly or myself can help you with that. I'm not sure anybody's doing any video or audio. So it just talks more about which file types, gives you a little bit more information of how to take a TXT file and make it into the Magic closed captioning file. Next slide. This is just an example of what it might look like. Next slide. Now I just did this quick check. There's a great accessibility check already, just an overview on the SNE website. That are the steps that you need to complete to go through. Just a reminder, this is one that I created just a little more in depth. But if you want to scan over this, is fine, but following the one on the SNE site is perfect also. But just thinking about things that if you check all of these things and you get stuck anywhere, you can say, you know, raise a hand, come back to the main room, ask a question, shoot it in the help desk if you'd like, and one of us can help you get that sorted out because we know you have a lot to do. Just one more page of that checklist. So just thinking about the different formats that you may be creating for your resources. And I think that might be everything, all accessibility in a nutshell in 30 minutes or less. But feel free to reach out. It's a lot. You guys, I know you're just worried about creation and getting a good resource. That's your number one concern, is getting a good resource. But thinking about that accessibility as you go along will just help you create an even greater, better, more better. How's that to make the ELA people cringe? A better resource for all your students and adults that are going to be using that. So thank you guys so much for jumping on the train, whether you wanted to or not. Some of you might be hanging on the back of the train, not wanting to, but jump on board. It's more comfortable on board.